So for brow grooming, there are several options, but obviously creams, waxes over which powders are laid are preferred. A lot of people use eyeshadows as well. And another option is to use pencils. I'm going to show you how to use waxes and powders, which normally come in a combination like so. I mean, there's several brands that do them differently, but this is one of the several that you'll find. So don't get confused. Try and stick to something that you've used, that you like using. There's no specific rule that you have to only use this product or you have to only use a pencil. Look at your client, see what's going to fill or do the job the better way, and choose a product accordingly. Over the years, I also found that I prefer using powders because I feel the filling and even the strokes and stuff look just more gentle and natural. Whereas pencils are more definite. So if you want to draw brow hairs to fill in, then pencils are a great option. But for now, I'm going to show you how to use a wax and a powder. You don't have to use both together. You can use one layered over the other or just the powder too. So always begin by grooming the brows with a spoolie brush. Make sure there's no oil, product, because that will start getting clunky as you're working on the eyebrow. So you want to just kind of push the hair in the same direction of the growth. So it kind of evens out and looks more groomed. And it will also indicate to you the direction in which you can go with your filling. Here, I'm not showing you any dramatic filling or changing shapes or anything like that. We're just going to try and make it as groomable and natural looking as possible. And since I have this product, I'm going to show you how to use both. So like the thumb rule, creams first, powders over the creams. So likewise, I'm going to just put the wax first. Now what the wax will do is it will settle the hair. It will keep it in place. And the powder will set the wax so it doesn't look blotchy after a while. So I'm going to go in with the wax. Now always use this kind of a brush. This is a synthetic brush and it's an angular brush. Now what the angle of this brush does is it goes into the corners, like the inner corner is easier to access. The outer corner becomes easier to access, and this flat of the brush makes the application along the hair easy. So choose the right brush. So normally these kind of brushes also come with the packaging most often than not. So you don't have to, if you don't have one, then you can use the one that is in the packaging. See, something like that. So you get a combination of everything. Let me take it out. Not to say that every brand has the same design, but if you can see, this is the filling brush, which has got a slight angle, and this is the powder brush. So you can use this for cleaning up and applying softer, like a light highlighter below the brow. Whereas this is the shaping brush. You can see the angle. That's the ideal one to go use the product with, the powder and the wax with. So if you don't happen to have one of the angular brushes in your kit, then you can use the one that comes along with the product itself. And you can make the option, you can choose whether you want to clean up the eyebrows. In our case, the model is trying to grow her eyebrows, so we won't mess with her natural brows. The point of this video is only to show you how to groom, not to clean up around or anything like that. It's basic grooming. Now, since we are at the very basic level, there's a way of picking up the product as well. You don't go in straight with the angle because it will mess with the brush, let me tell you. This will begin to fray the top, and it will become a pointless product to have in your kit. So be careful how you pick up the product. Use the angle. Use the angle to pick up the product. So a bit of the wax. Get it on both the sides. So a bit like butter, just take a swipe. So you have enough to paint with. Now gauge the shape of the eyebrow. You want to make it as uniform as possible. Having said that, brows are never meant to look identical. Nothing that comes in pairs looks identical. It's okay to have a bit of a natural difference. The thing is to understand now the natural hair growth. What we all do know, and it's common to all of us, is that hair grows heavier from here on. So there's thinner hair growth on the sides, there's thinner hair growth normally in the, closer to the nose. And that's how it would look natural. So you don't want to draw a strong line and fill it in with a block of color from the beginning of the brow till the end of the brow. So make sure that you know that in the very beginning, because that applies to all makeup brow grooming that you would do in the future as well. So we don't want to draw too strong lines too much at the beginning, because hair over here tends to be much thinner, finer. So let's start with the base at the bottom. You want to work with the flat of the brush and sweep the color into the brow. Don't make lines which are very obvious like this. Another key thing to note is, like I said, don't start from the beginning. Also, don't draw lines like this. This makes it too obvious that you'll be tempted to fill a block in there. You don't want to do that. Of course, with practice, with time, you'll have a natural hand moves naturally along the brow. But another thing that's important is don't put too much wax into the brow as well. You just need a little sweep of it. If you put too much of a cream, it becomes a blob. And then you're going to set it with powder. So that part becomes darker than you can handle later in the makeup. So you want to have an even application. So you can see, if you take a very close look, how the hair is getting slightly flattened with the use of wax. But you don't always have to use wax. I think this is more beneficial when you have slightly unruly eyebrows. It's a great idea to have the wax, so it keeps it down. Let's take off this and not. So you want to flatten the hair, so you get a kind of a semblance of where you want to take your brow. I think that working from underneath, from below the brow is much better than beginning on the top, because most of the roots, and this actually kind of tells you the direction in which you could go from the base. So it's a better way to start working on a brow than going from top, from above. With above, you tend to make it too curved and it becomes too obvious, because the hair growth here is not as thick as it would be at the base. So not always, it's not a rule of thumb or anything, you can do anything you please, but having said that, it's so much nicer to work from the base upwards, because that's how hair is as well. It's thicker at the base and it's softer at the top. So you want to just set it. And if you notice, I'm not doing it too heavily here as well, because we'll gauge the length later when I'm filling it. So just finishing off this bit. Let me clean off the beginning here. Now I'll go in from the top using the wax, just to kind of sharpen this. And again, if you notice, I'm not going in right from here. I'm going a little away, just so it looks more natural. And here, with what was remaining on my brush, I just fill it lightly. So it looks more natural and wispy rather than very colored and blocked. So that's largely the shaping bit done. So that's basically just the very beginning of it. Now, one thing you should be very careful is not to overdo this step if you're using the wax. I've mentioned it before, but if you're using the wax, it's largely just to kind of put the hair in place so the powdering becomes easier. Number one, and secondly, it's largely to kind of give you a direction where to go with the brow shaping. So you don't want to go very heavy in this first step, because once you put a very heavy cream, it's going to just attract the powder and it gets blotchy and it's a little hard to fix and a bit unsightly too. So this, if you're doing this, you need to keep it really gentle. It's literally just to put the hairs back in place. Another thing is, you might be wondering why I'm using a brown. Okay, so the thing is, unless absolutely necessary, unless the look calls for it. It's very, very rarely that one would use a jet black on the eyebrows. Also, there's a natural tendency universally to color your hair, right? So you don't want the color on your head to be very different from the color on the brows. Some kind of a common coloring should be visible. So brown is a better choice, really. And black does also tend to block the eye and make it look very severe. So you don't want to do that unless it is for dramatic purposes that you're using a black. So ideally, but again, having said that, makeup is makeup and you can play with it. But having said that, it's a better, lighter choice, especially when you're going for a natural kind of brow grooming. So going on, I'm just repeating very quickly the same thing on the other side, so you can take a quiet look at it. So I've already groomed the brow, but I'll do it again. So you just want to pick the hair up in the direction of its natural growth, kind of assess how much painting in you have to do, and start a little away from the center. And use the flat of the brush to fill and the slant to kind of get the shape. Putting the hair down and keeping it in place. And don't be too, kind of obsessed by getting the shapes even on brows. Of course, they should look like they belong to one person. But having said that, there is always this tendency, like I said earlier, that anything that comes in pairs does have a small difference, and that's, I think, kind of what makes it interesting in makeup. So although you do want to try and achieve balance, you don't want to straighten them up to a point where they look like surgically enhanced or anything. You just want to keep them natural. So with whatever's remaining on your brush, you just go in at the beginning of the brows to give it that natural wispy kind of filling here. So another thing I want to tell you is, see, in some cases, people who maybe have fallen in their childhood or have stitches on their eyebrows, you have a cut. And that tends to shine because it heals and then the skin kind of tightens and it doesn't look like skin elsewhere on the thing. And it can be quite upsetting when you're trying to achieve some kind of a look and it shines through no matter what you do. So in those cases, a model doesn't have a situation like that, but I'm explaining it to you in case you do happen to come across an eyebrow like that. The part that shines like that, you just wait, you do the normal filling, and then you can use paint pots, the gel liners that we get these days, the waterproof gel liners. You can choose a brown or something close to the color that you've used. Use a fine eyeliner brush and then literally draw the hair into that place so it kind of looks natural and you don't get thrown by that strange, severe looking cut. That's something that I've noticed in my years as a makeup artist. It always shines. Even if you mattify it, it shines because it's not shining from oil. It's shining from the way the skin has healed across that area. Just a little note, so in case you come across it, which you will. So you just want to keep this natural, just fill. Don't want to fuss too much over here because this is just the first step. Now I'll just go in with the powder, and the powder is largely where you're finishing up the makeup. So if you want to enhance the length, or you feel like, okay, now I'm going to put higher peaks on her brows, all those adjustments can be made with the final powder. Again, likewise, the powder also, you don't want to approach the product directly like this. It's not the ideal way, only because it will mess with your brush. Your brush will open up, fray, and it will be useless in the next few times. So you want to always approach the product like this, at the angle. If you can see very closely, I'm getting enough product without messing with the brush. Now this is the part where you go in for the kill, literally. So you want to do the right, like complete the job, so to speak. So I'm going over what I did before, but you'll notice it getting more defined, more dark. That's because you're setting the cream, number one, and also you're really filling in the spots in the brow that may have been left. And here's where you can tweak the shape, like you want to go higher, you want to make it longer. But I'm going to just leave it quite natural because she barely has any other makeup on. Sometimes what's important to do is also, once you finish your eye makeup, if you have an elaborate look or just like a makeup look happening, you can then, based on the shape of the eye, if you have a long eye, you can make the brow longer, you can keep it natural. So you can think of many things depending on your complete makeup and where you want to take that look. And it's very important to consider all of that. Now at the beginning of the brow, again you don't want too much color, and look how I'm just sweeping the color through so it doesn't look very, very painted in, and sticking to the natural shape. Once you have that done, you can use your spoolie and literally just comb it in to kind of put it all together. And if there's any excess, it does tend to come off with this step. So another way to, this is an added step, and once you want to do elaborate eye makeup, it comes in handy. So in the event you want to sharpen the areas under and above, you can do so with a concealer or a foundation after you complete the brow. So it comes into sharp focus, the brow just comes into sharp focus and it looks really tidy. But it's not a must do, especially if you're just doing a quick makeup for someone and it's not very particularly a studio shot or anything. If you're just doing a personal makeup, but you still want to make it tidy, then and this goes for any kind of makeup. I do it for lips as well. So any small feature that you want to bring back into focus, you ideally should clean up around it. So to do that, you take a concealer or a foundation, or even a highlighting powder that normally comes, in kits like this. Sometimes brow kits have the wax, they have the powder, and they also have a highlighting product and a clear brow gel, a kind of wax that you can, after you finish the makeup, you groom the brows back again and keep them sealed for some time. And sometimes you don't have that, but then you have the option of using concealers, foundations, or light eyeshadow, highlighting powders like that one, like a light one, skin but not white. So any off-white or such colors, creamy colors. You want to go in really close to the baseline. Literally like applying a highlighter on the brow bone. So what this will do is kind of bring the brow into sharp focus. It will look tidier. And also it sharpens the shape, whatever you're trying to achieve. And you just blend. Just blend to finish. I'm not crazy about working from above, but if you have unruly brows, you want it to really look sharp, you can do that from above as well. I'm not particularly nuts about this because somehow I feel there's a lot of hair that happens here in a natural brow growth, and it kind of looks nice and really soft. It softens the brows, it doesn't make it look very shapely, but I've seen a lot of mature women prefer that, you know, their brows get tidied up from up and down. So you can do that too. And if you're using a concealer or foundation, don't forget to pat powder over it, so set it. So it shouldn't look shiny and, you know, unfinished, so to speak. So after this step, if you haven't used a powder product, don't forget, I've used a concealer. So if you've used a cream or a liquid product, then you want to quickly set that with a powder so it doesn't get shiny after some time and make your brow look dull. So just a dab of a translucent powder or your, you know, compact powder, whatever is available or you tend to use. Just kind of finish that off. And you can see the difference, you know, between the two brows. Not as if this is not clean, but this is sharper. It's come back into focus. So then, depending on where you're going with the look, it's a great idea to add that step to your makeup. So let me just finish off because I started the job. And just finish off on the other eye as well. That. Just do that again. And you know, this works as an eraser as well. So if you feel like you've gone off the mark a little bit, you can clean it up with this. Helps you tweak the shape. Alright, so here's another thing that's common to brow making up or brow grooming. Once you're done, I mentioned earlier that some kits do come with clear brow waxes. Now you can use the product normally comes with brushes that help you use those, you know, the palettes. In this case, there's no clear brow wax, but it does then come with a brush that can dispense that product. But in case you don't have a brow gel, you can use, you know, something like this. Like you get a mascara kind of brow setting, you know, product. If you can see, it's got this tiny little mascara kind of wand, like a spoolie. Now what this will help do is it does the final grooming, and you can pick up the hair and place it as a final kind of combing. And it's really cool because it keeps the hair in place. And it's got its, you know, it's like a gel-like thing. And sometimes you get it with colors, like this one has a color, it's brown. You get clear gels as well. So the clear gels don't add color, but they kind of set and keep the brow in place. This is super useful when you have very thick eyebrows, you know, brows that go all over the place, or like mine. I have curly eyebrows actually. And they do tend to get displaced even after I finish setting them. So then I need something to keep them down. So you can use these brow gel products, or here's a great trick for a beginner because you're hardly likely to have a million products in your kit. So in that case, what I tend to do is use a spoolie brush. That's a spoolie brush. And obviously take it away from the person's face. You just give it a little light spray with a hairspray and let it dry just a little bit, and then you can roll the spoolie in the direction that you want the hair to sit. Now if you have a long day at work, this is very useful because the hair will not move so much, it will stay in place. And it's great for especially close-up shoots, beauty shots where you need like great precision and you need to help the photographer do as little retouching as possible. Great step. So I'm just going to repeat. Like you need just groom to finish with a brow grooming gel. And this is again available in different colors across different brands. Another word of caution here, you do get colored mascaras, you know that. So if you're using a brown mascara, not a brow gel on the eyebrows, don't use the same product on your eyes. If you choose to use mascara as a brow gel, keep them separate from your eyes because you can introduce bacteria that's in the hair here into your eyes and you never want to do that personally or for your client. So if you're planning to use a mascara as a brow gel, make sure that you never use it on the eyelash line. And vice versa, you don't want to use mascara on the brows either. So keep your products separate, keep your products clean, all important. So I think that kind of wraps this up. Let me just quickly set. Since I've done it on the other eyebrow, it's a placebo thing, so I'm going to do it. Just kind of work that back. Just a final finish. I can see a spot there. I seem to have missed. So that kind of does it. It's really simple. I've taken way longer than it should in a natural makeup, in natural real time. But this was largely to explain. And just to go over some key points, don't use black if you can help it, because black does make things come out really starkly, and unless absolutely necessary, black is not a color that's often used on eyebrows. Secondly, important, very, very key thing is remember how hair grows naturally on the brows and go with that unless you're creating a specific look. In a natural brow, hair tends to be thinner here in the beginning, close to the nose, and it also tends to be thinner in growth at the ends, at the tapered ends. So do that in your makeup as well. Use less product, ideally remainder at the centers here, close to the nose, and likewise more of a tapered finish towards the ends. And of course in between you can tweak the shape, you can make it curvier, angular, however else you want. Thirdly, if you want to clean up around using highlighting products or powders that are lighter, anything to bring the brows back into focus. Never overfill an eyebrow because that looks more severe than a makeup. It needs to still fall in place with the entire look. So don't overfill eyebrows. Especially in natural looks, it tends to just jump out of your face and look quite wrongly placed. So be careful, assess the features, go along with the eye makeup. If there is no eye makeup, keep the brows really gentle and soft. I hope all of this helps you.